Now, while we're hacking, we don't want people to notice. We want to be stealthy. And that includes cleaning up after ourselves so no one sees any of the debris we have left behind. So let's talk about covering our tracks, hiding evidence. You need to clear your tracks. Now, if you are online, meaning on the internet, there are many things you can do. You could use private browsing, delete your browser history, delete anything stored, delete any private data, clear the cookies, clear any data in the password manager, delete any saved sessions, delete any user JavaScript, clear the cache, no downloads, delete the or disable the password manager, clear the toolbar data, turn off autocomplete, use different accounts to kind of throw people off the track. Remove your most recently used entries and turn off most used apps and recently opened items. In Linux, you can use the bash to cover your tracks. Bash is simply the command prompt. You could disable history, so nobody can even see the commands you ran. You would say export hist size equals 0. You could clear your history. History tac-c. This just clears any history of commands. You could history tac-w. This would clear the history of your current session, your current shell. You could clear a user's complete history. You could say cat means concatenate or read, in dev null. Anytime you see this dot here, like at the beginning of something, that's a hidden thing. So tilde dot bash underscore history and history, tac-c and exit. Clear the user's complete history. This cat dev null means concatenate this to nothing. In other words, don't show or print this in any way, shape, or form. There's a shred command that allows you to shred the history file. Then you can delete it and even clear evidence of the shred command. So you could just simply say shred tilde / dot bash underscore history. In other words, shred up the history file for this user. And then you could shred the history file and delete the history file and delete the very fact that we issued the command by clearing the history itself. You could not delete files, but simply hide them as something else. So in Linux, you could name a malicious file something.log, but look closely, look carefully here. Do you see how that there's actually a space? So you could call it, I don't know, activity.log or just abc.log, but it's not .log, it's .space.log. And that space, when you have that kind of space here, then that is going to, when you start with something with a dot, remember, start something with a dot, it's hidden. And what you do is, this space then allows you to have just whatever name you like, and the dot will make it hidden. So you hide it in a place where we expect to see log files, dev or temp. And people won't notice the space there. If you're trying to hide what you're doing on the network, you could use a reverse HTTP shell, meaning when we have the remote access Trojan, remember how we were talking about that? One of the things, we could tell the victim to come out to us rather than we make a connection to the victim. That looks normal. We would have a HTTP listener running, and the victim would use HTTP to carry both its request for a command and the command from us back, and it would look like a normal web session. And the firewall would just let it go. Or we could have a reverse ICMP tunnel. Tell the victim to ping out past the firewall, because we probably cannot ping in, but ping out past the firewall, and the actual payload, whatever data we're stealing, is hidden inside the ICMP packet. Or, same thing, but instead of pinging, do a DNS query. Or have DNS replies. We'll have replies, they'll have queries. And that means we have a phony DNS server. Or we could use TCP covert channels. Now, a covert channel is anything that is used to secretly carry data in a way that's not expected. So like the simplest example of a covert channel is the old smoke signals. So you've got the campfire going up like this. You go over it with a blanket so it comes up as puffs, and that someone from afar reads that and they know what that code means. It's just smoke signals, but it actually has a code built into it. So that's a classic example of a covert channel. Covert channels can also just be data hidden inside of network packets, because a lot of network packets just have padding, filler, that is irrelevant just to make them big enough so that they fall within the acceptable range for the networking protocol. And ICMP is a classic example. DNS query is another one. You could pack data in where the fluff is, and that's a covert channel. So you could also do this using the IP ID field in the IP header, put in secret data there. You could have TCP ACK segments, sequences that frankly don't mean anything, but they're hiding covert information. Or even in the initial sequence number, because there's no data exchange when we first do a handshake, so hide some covert data there. So it's possible. Turn off auditing so that they can't even keep track of who logs on. In Windows, there's a tool called Audit Pol, Audit Policy. And you can run it, it's a command line tool. You can say get every category. And then you can say Audit Pol again, whack whack, backslash backslash, some target, some victim, disable. Turn off auditing. You can also clear event logs. Now in Windows, it's the event viewer logs. So this operating system has logs, applications have logs, and the audit log is the security log. You could go to the event viewer, and you don't have to be on this machine locally. You could, once you compromise a machine, you could do it remotely. You could right-click one of these window logs and say clear the log. Or you can use a tool that will do it for you. In Linux, it doesn't look like this, but there's a folder, a directory, in var log where all the messages are. And that's where all the logs are. So there are tools that will cover your tracks that'll clear logs for you. There's a batch file you can get called Clear Event Viewer Logs. There's the free Internet Window Washer. This is actually for when you're online. Metasploit has the Clear EV command. You can see a variety of things. Here's an example of BleachBit for getting rid of your history when you're online. So that is hiding evidence.